You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show. And yes, I am your host, Rick Franzi. We have a great show planned for you today. Why do you ask? Fair question, because Brandon Martini is our guest. He is co-founder for Stratus Financial, as well as one of the podcast hosts for Aviation Mentors podcast. We're talking about both of them here today on the show. Brandon, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Rick. Appreciate it.
So let's get into it. I love it when I have a co-founder on the show. Take us back in time and share with us the inspiration, motivation you had to start Stratus Financial.
Yeah, absolutely. So about four and a half years ago, my co-founder, Anthony Gerasi, and I, we started Stratus Financial. It came from a need that I had at my flight schools. I used to own two flight schools, one in Riverside and one in Redlands. I exited those in July of 2023 to focus fully on this company because it's been growing. But we started out as just needing financing from my flight school students. I noticed that 80% of flight school students who do not have funding drop out of flight school. And I thought that number was staggering. So I reached out to one of my friends who owns a large law firm in Orange County called Gerasi Law. Some of your listeners might have heard of them already. And we started Stratus Financial. We started off with one flight school, which was mine. Moved that out to about 5 flight schools in the local area and in LA area as well. And now we've grown that to over 300 flight school partners across 32 states. And we're the fastest growing small company in Orange County, according to the OC Business Journal, 2 years in a row.
Well, congratulations on that. I follow that listing regularly, and so it's nice to see you at the top of that list. What does it cost to go to flight school? What are we talking about?
Yeah, so if you just want to do it as a hobby, it's generally around $18,000. But if you want to go from, we call it zero to hero. So if you want to go from zero flight time to a commercial pilot, which means you can go work as a flight instructor or something like that, it generally average across the U.S. is $86,000. So it's not a cheap endeavor, and unless you come from a family of means, or if you've got money on your house that you can second mortgage, that's the only way you can really do it. So we're that stopped out.
And how many flight schools are there in the U.S., Brandon?
Depending on the size of flight school and depending on how you rate it, there could be up to 2,000 flight schools. We've identified about 1,900 on our list. I think there's still more mom and pops out there, but there's a lot of flight schools. It's a $2 billion market, flight training per year.
See, you learn something new every day here on Critical Mass Business Talk Show from our guests like Brandon. So 4.5 years ago, you've been in any pivots to the business? Like, what have you guys learned since you launched it with this need and this idea how to solve it?
Yeah, I mean, we've made a lot of small pivots, but our mantra has been for pilots by pilots. And we kind of take that perspective. I'm a commercially rated pilot and flight instructor. I trained my co-founder, Anthony, how to become a pilot as well. So he's also a commercially rated pilot. But the pivots we've kind of made along the way are underwriting flight schools. Originally, we had a certain set of underwriting guidelines that we had for these flight schools. Now we want to double check and make sure that they're really abiding by those. And we've made changes to that. We've also made changes to underwriting techniques. Those have been pivots, but nothing major really compared to, I don't know, some of the COVID stuff that happened. So really the pivots have been small, but also meaningful. I mean, when you say that you're changing FICO scores from a 660 to a 720, something like that, just to get away from default rates, those are major pivots in the business that have a direct impact on pull through, and they're things you have to do in a lending company. That's actually quite often.
Okay, so let me understand this. Did you or your partner have experience in the lending industry before you started Stratus?
So Anthony had experience in the lending industry, but mostly hard money loans, and we take a very real estate centric kind of look at our borrowers to verify their creditworthiness rather than just kind of a standard U.S. consumer credit. We're looking at all the pillars that somebody would look at if they were going to go buy a house, compared to if you're going to use a credit card and get approved on a credit card, which we're probably a little bit closer to than a house without security. You're really going to be looking at, different variations of why debt to income ratio gets calculated compared to us. We're looking at like if you're buying a house.
So I love it when entrepreneurs come on the show and they have a well-defined niche. And I got to tell you, it feels like you got a super well-defined niche.
They say the riches are in the niches, and I mean, there's nothing more nichey than the private aviation student loan space. I mean, there's
Right.
tenfold coming down on that.
So let's talk a little bit more about Stratus. Maybe you kind of gave us a high level. I think I have a pretty clear picture, but there's got to be more as well you can share with us. Who are you helping, and how does the mechanism work? And of all the people you could finance and help, like, who gets the most value out of working with your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So we try to find people who are struggling to finance their flight training. Like I said, it's a very expensive endeavor. So we're looking for the people who don't have the means already to do this, or they don't have that equity in their house, like I was saying earlier. You really want to kind of get into looking for that ideal customer. And that ideal customer for us is somebody who has either graduated college and looking for their career. They are, let's just say they're a flight attendant. They know how the industry works. They know that the amount of money that they make as a pilot is more than you'll make as a doctor with a lot less investment in the beginning. There's statistics on that, by the way. And we're really looking to help people who have a passion for aviation. So some things that we do kind of on the outset of their flight training, we send them birthday cards. I mean, what lender sends their borrowers birthday cards that are handwritten in the mail? So we do that whenever they get a new pilot certificate. That'll happen between 6 and 10 times in their pilot journey. We'll send them a handwritten card and an email that says, congratulations on your private pilot certificate or your instrument rating or things like that. So we take I like to say that we're the Stratus family. So whenever a borrower gets onboarded, a new employee, or even an investor with us, we call them welcome to the Stratus family, because we feel like there's going to be ups and downs in all relationships, business, personal, lending, and we want to treat you like a family member. But there's going to be love that goes around all the way. So we try to help out the people as much as possible. And really it correlates into the people that have a passion for aviation, kind of like me and Anthony did.
So you said something that caused me to want to ask you a follow-up question, which is the word investor. I was curious where you were getting your sources of capital. Can you talk a little bit about who would invest and how you approach investors?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a website, stratusfinancialfund.com. And if somebody wants to get in depth and look at it, they can check it out there. But Stratus Financial has a fund and we have an operating company. So we raise money into our fund, which I'm heavily invested. My co-founder is heavily invested as well into there. So we raise funds into that and we use that as leverage to get senior warehouse facilities in Wall Street. So last year we got a up to $50 million forward flow facility with a company called Monticello Capital Partners. They're a small private credit firm out of Greenwich. It's public knowledge. And then we're closing another facility. It could be literally today or tomorrow. I'm just waiting for the loan docs to come in from attorneys. We're closing another $30 million facility on that. But they have advance rates that you have to meet. So for that $30 million facility, we have to have $6 million raised in a particular SPV in our fund to be able to unlock all of that money. So that's what the investors are for. We raise money into that fund and paid them a preferential return of 13 to 15%.
Okay, so similar question, but at a different focus. Did you or your partner have experience setting up funds and raising capital like this before you guys started Stratus?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had some experience raising capital for my friends' funds and friends' investments. But nothing very seriously. But Anthony's law firm actually specialized in setting up funds and raising capital. So it was really kind of a marriage made in heaven when we started this business. He came from the kind of private credit and he had all of the law firm experience. And I come from the flight school background and I can underwrite the flight schools and I know all the tricks that flight schools and students will try. So it turned into a good marriage there. I mean, for example, that when you try to underwrite a student or a school might not even have the equipment that's needed to get somebody to a commercial pilot certificate. You have to have a certain type of aircraft. If you're not following a syllabi properly, there's a lot of reasons why students will fail. And I knew all of them coming from the flight school background. And then Anthony obviously knew the other side of it. So it really worked out well to start this business.
So as I understand your business model, this is multifaceted. You have a bunch of different, I mean, the interplay. Um, but I have to believe for the flight schools, you are creating potentially more qualified students because you're helping them to get the funding and stay in school for the duration. So that you must be an attractive partner for them because you're helping them recruit future pilots.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably the easiest way that we get our leads. Flight schools need us.
Mhm.
They don't have anybody else. There was a couple lenders in the past that have dropped out of the market, not because of the market in general. It's just because Capital One and Wells Fargo, I think it was Capital One at least, but I know Wells Fargo for sure, they stopped doing student loans. So if in general, there's
Mm.
not just for us, but private student loans in general. So when you have no players left in the industry, somebody has to kind of fill in that void. Stratus Financial is the biggest and probably, I mean, there's one or two little tiny ones out there right now, but really we're a necessity to their business. If it's not for us, then they have students that have to pay as they go over 2 to 4 years. And that's not sustainable for their business. And it's actually not sustainable for these borrowers who want to become commercial pilots. Because at the end of your career, you actually have to retire at 65 years old if you go and work for an airline, which is probably one of the more lucrative ways to make money in this industry. And that means every year that you get older, you have less earning potential that you can make. So I tell everybody, if you spend 4 to 6 years at a 4-year college and get a degree, you've actually lost a minimum of $1 million of earning potential in your career. So it's worthwhile taking a loan from us, paying interest on it, and paying it off as quick as possible. And let's just even say you had a terrible rate and you had all this other stuff. Let's just say you pay $150,000 in interest over 15 years or something, right? That's totally worth it because now you've finished off your flight training in 1 year. You're making another $750,000 over your lifetime. And when I use a conservative number like $250,000 a year, I truly mean that's conservative. I know pilots that are making $1 million a year at the end of their career, and it's because they're really they're working probably a little too hard, but they're working hard because they want that pension or they've got
Right.
some upside at the end of it, right?
Interesting. Yeah, so really, it sounds like within your niche, the sweet spot are those students who want to become commercial pilots because of the duration, cost, et cetera, versus maybe the aviation hobbyist who wants to learn how to fly maybe own a private plane or something at some point.
Exactly. I mean, we started off making a few loans for those people, but generally they have higher default rates. They're not doing this for a career.
Right.
So we actually discontinued those types of loans about 6 months ago. So
Okay.
we're no longer doing the smaller loans. There's another company that's out there that specializes in that. And to be honest, I don't know how they're doing business, considering I know how the defaults go on those smaller note rates.
That's interesting. All right. So let's shift our focus once again here on critical mass and talk about maybe a piece of business advice, Brandon, that somebody gave you along the way that you can pay forward to my audience today.
I would just say don't give up. There's always kind of light at the end of the tunnel, even though how dark it may seem. And there's actually a saying, and I don't know where it came from, and it could be famous, it could not be, and it's called 3 feet from gold. And whenever you feel like giving up, you're probably only 3 feet from gold. And it stems from this miner who was digging straight into a mine. And he dug and dug and dug, and everyone said there was gold in this mine. And he tried and tried and tried. He ended up giving up and gave the mine to somebody else. Somebody else went in that mine, just change direction. So you can change your mindset. You can change the direction of whatever you're doing in business. And he just changed it at a different angle, went 3 more feet, hit gold, and became rich. So I heard that story somewhere. I don't know where. It's been 20 years in my brain, and I say it all the time. Whether it's real or fake, doesn't matter. It still resonates with me. And I always remember you just have to make a small pivot. It doesn't even have to be a drastic one. And you're normally 3 feet from gold. I even tell that to flight school students when they're plateauing and they're trying to figure out, well, this isn't for me because maybe they're having trouble landing the aircraft, which is generally the hardest part, or soloing, or learning the math that's involved in cross-country flight planning, which is actually not that hard, believe it or not. Everyone thinks math, you have to be a genius in math. You don't to become a pilot. But yeah, I would say something like that would probably be the best advice that I've ever been given or taken or thought of. I'm not sure how I would think about it, but it's worked for me.
I thank you for that. And as you were talking, I was thinking, one of the keys in my experience, having interviewed a ton of entrepreneurs to the successful ones, is their ability to persevere. You get knocked down, you get back up. You have to keep at it.
Absolutely. What's funny about that? I'm sure some of your audience is either an EO member or heard of Entrepreneurs Organization, which I've been a member for a long time now in Orange County. And we had like a theme in our forum the other day, and it was about perseverance through tough times. And so persevere really resonates for me right now. I mean, you just have to keep on going, and eventually you'll make it through.
Right. Yeah. It's not everyone's cut out to be a founder or a co-founder or an entrepreneur. That's for sure, Brandon. With the few minutes that we have left, I'm wondering from your perspective, what's your view on artificial intelligence, and how do you see it impacting either the lending industry or the aviation industry?
So I'll start off with the aviation industry, and then we'll move into the lending, because there's a lot in the lending. Aviation industry, I don't think it's going to change very much right now. I think that the only thing that it could possibly do is we can analyze accidents in different ways, and we can analyze the reasons behind those and see if there's any hidden reasons why things are happening. For example, we had that Black Hawk in an Envoy crash that was very tragic. I guess it was last week now. And I would say that things like that, we're probably going to use AI to alert pilots a little bit sooner rather than just ATC or just the computer systems that are in these aircraft today. So I think those are possibilities for AI. Also examining the way that aircraft fuel is burned, engine builds, things like that. I think those are all optimized things that we can look at over time. But I think really the true area where we're going to see a ton of AI is in lending. We're going to be looking at trends in different ways. We're already looking at trends in our loan tape today to find out why our defaults have defaulted, why our good loans are performing properly. And we're looking for direct and indirect correlations to our industry and other industries using public knowledge. When we get more and more data in there, it's going to be unbelievable the amount of insights we're going to be able to find. We're even going to be able to tell borrowers what they need to do long term and why they're getting disapproved on certain applications. I think that'll become a whole new business. You're seeing AI transform everything we do in life right now. I know that I use AI in my life, I don't know, at least 10 times a day now. And when I first saw it, I used it to type my girlfriend nice messages, and I sent a text over to her, right? That's what I originally used it for. And now I use it to
served its
rewrite.
purpose.
It did. I mean, it served its purpose, and it worked nice. But you use it to rewrite emails in professional ways, to fix your grammar so you sound more professional. Those are just base uses, but the analytics are phenomenal. I have an amazing executive assistant. Her name is Kathleen, and I don't know how I would live life without her at this point. But I will say ChatGPT came out with something called Operator. And if you pay the $200 a month, like I do for ChatGPT, you can click on Operator and it will literally do everything a personal assistant can do. It's unbelievable. I had it book me a scuba diving adventure in Kona, Hawaii for Valentine's Day weekend. And it literally showed me a video of it going to the website, clicking the links, and inputting all the data.
Wow.
If it can do those little things today, imagine the world that it can change for us in the future. Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's accelerating. It's kind of developing itself. That's a great example, and thank you for sharing that. I mentioned at the top of the show that not only are you a co-founder of Stratus, you're also a co-host of Aviation Mentors. So talk about the podcast. Why did you start it? What are you hoping to accomplish with it? Just give us a sense for why people might want to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Aviation Mentors podcast. I think it's been about 2.5 years now. I started to kind of share my knowledge in the aviation industry that I've gained over, I guess it's been over 11 years of being a pilot at this point now, and some trials and tribulations that I've had to deal with. Also, what are the opportunities for these pilots once they finish flight school? How do you navigate that? It's not just become a flight instructor, go to the airlines. There's so many other things. In Southern California, we've had a ton of aircraft fighting fires. That's really been a big thing. Even if you want to go fly drones professionally, that's also another thing. Police helicopters, you name it. Aviation has its place all over our economy. So I wanted to share a place where we could talk about that and really encourage people to become pilots and share my knowledge and love for it. And it's always, and I didn't talk to you about this before, but I also came out with a children's book called Sky High and Big Wheels.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's available only on Kindle right now. It's a little tiny book, but it's for children, and it's to get kids involved in thinking about aviation and thoughts. Being a father myself, and my girlfriend's got a nephew who's 4 years old, and he loves monster trucks, and I love airplanes, so I created something in airplanes and monster trucks, and it's really just to kind of inspire the next generation. Go find aviation, go for a flight. Go to your local flight school in this area. There's a whole bunch at John Wayne, and get a discovery flight. They're like $100 or $200, and literally they'll change your perspective on life. And that's what it has in aviation for me.
Wow, that's compelling. What's the future for Stratus Financial? Where are you and your partner? Where do you see the potential for the business? Where's it going?
So right now, we're focused strictly on funding the future pilots of America, right? But long term, I think that we could go international. Pilots around the world are making more and more money every year. It's 10 years ago, pilots were only making like $35,000. That should scare everybody in the US, by the way, as a first officer. Captains were making considerably more. Around the world, it's still $35,000 or $40,000, and you actually get to start at 250 hours, not 1,500 hours. But around the world, income is going up for these pilots. So and also flight training is staying the same or more expensive than the US. So I think there's a very, very large captive market around the US around the world for us to go after. And then secondly, no one is attacking flight school finance for their aircraft. Honestly, you can fly a 1960s airplane or a 2000s airplane with the same number of flight hours, and the 1960s airplane might be a better quality airplane to fly. No one's financing those types of aircraft either. So I think long term, we're going to finish capitalizing the entire market space here, which we're already doing today. Go out to the world, and then hit aircraft finance next. I think those are our next two pillars.
I really love that, because part of what some entrepreneurs have said to me about focusing on a niche is they're worried about being limited to just the available market in the niche. But what you just showed us, Brandon, is there are secondary markets and ancillary markets all within that niche that you can trade on as you kind of conquer one aspect of it. So that was a great view for the future. If someone wanted to connect with you on LinkedIn, and why wouldn't they? Or maybe they want to learn about Stratus or find your podcast, where do they go online to do that, Brandon?
Yeah, LinkedIn is absolutely the best. If you type in Brandon Martini, so I'm normally the first one on top. There's only a couple of us out there in the world, but you can click Brandon Martini. You can also go to stratusfinancialfund.com or www.stratus.finance, and you can learn more about our company, what we do. And then Aviation Mentors podcast, we're available everywhere via audio. Literally, if you go on Spotify, we're there. You go on Apple, we're there. But outside of that, if you want to see more of my beautiful face, you can go on YouTube, and you can see us there all the time as well.
Well, this has been, I told you at the top of the show, we had a good one planned for you with Brandon, and you did not disappoint. Your experience as being a podcaster came through loud and clear. Thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed learning about your business and you.
Rick, thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for listening. Really appreciate you guys.
And yeah, thank you to the audience. You're a part of Orange County's longest running business talk show. Brandon's episode is going to join the catalog of over 1,500 shows that we've done over the years. If you happen to be an Orange County entrepreneur or a nonprofit leader here in Orange County, you too would like to share your story with our audience, it's really easy. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Rick, R-I-C, Franzi, F-R-A-N-Z-I. And let me know that you have an interest in being a guest. And between Haley and myself, Haley's our producer, we'll be happy to get you ready for the show and feature you on a future episode. Until we all have a chance to be together again, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.